Hello and welcome to TrackVia's Building a Feedback Tracking App in 30 Minutes webinar. Our presenters today are Derek Kotlis and Kate Zornow, and we will go through just a few housekeeping things before we get started. You've been started in listen-only mode. Please keep to that so everyone can hear the presentation today. If you have questions, please do submit them by the chat window. We will get to them at the end of the presentation or as we can throughout the presentation. If we don't get to some, we will follow up with those that we don't answer live. The webinar will be recorded today, and we'll send you a follow-up email with that recording within 48 hours. So with all of that, that takes care of our housekeeping, and I'll turn it over to you, Kate, for the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, all. For those who do not know me, again, my name is Kate Zornow. I run the implementation team. So if you're ever asking for some help or need some help, you're most certainly working with my team. Previous to running the team, I actually was an IE myself. So excited to be here and excited to get my chops back in it and build this app in 30 minutes for y'all. Derek, I'll let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. Hello again, everyone. I'm Derek. I lead our customer education efforts here at TrackVia. Over the last couple of months on our admin webinars, we've been looking at really specific features and ways to use them in the TrackVia application. Today, we're taking a step back and we're going to look at building an entire app in TrackVia. So who better to have with us to show us how to build an application than Kate? So excited for her to be working with everyone today. So thanks everyone for joining. Let's take a look at the agenda. We're talking about a feedback app today. So we're just going to get on the same page of what a feedback app is and why you should want to create one in your account, what the benefits are. Anytime we're talking about building an application in TrackVia, we want to be thinking about user stories. So we'll do a review of what user stories are, and then we will look at specific user stories for the feedback app that we're going to build today. Then Kate's going to walk us through the 30-minute app build, and then we'll bring things back. We'll just do questions at the end, takeaways, and wrap things up. So that's what we're going to do in the next 45 minutes or so. So let's get started here. All right. First thing we want to talk about is what a feedback app even is, right? What are we talking about? Well, it's fairly straightforward. A feedback application is an application that you can build in your TrackVia account that complements your other applications, okay? It allows your users to go to that app and submit feedback based on the other applications. So whether it's improvements or modifications, whatever that might be. The other side of that is that it allows the admins to have visibility into that feedback, see the feedback that's coming in, triage it, maybe prioritize it, and then figure out what's actionable. Okay, so that's essentially, if you think about it, it's a communication channel between your admins and your end users. Now, what are the benefits? There's tons of benefits of implementing a feedback app in your account. Personally, I think everybody should have a feedback app in their account. And Kate's clicking through a bunch of the benefits over here. I think we'll talk about just a couple, right? But there's a lot more than this. First, staying organized, right? You are going to get feedback on the applications that you build, whether you get them through Slack or email or in person or over the phone, whatever it might be. There's a lot of different mediums you're going to get feedback. Having a feedback application gives you that central repository where you can keep that feedback. Anytime anybody says, hey, I have an idea for one of our apps, say, great, log it in the feedback app, right? It's going to help you. I like the term herding cats, right? It helps herd the cats. It helps get all of the information into one place to make your life a lot easier. Okay, there's multiple uses for a feedback app. Two major uses are collecting feedback during a testing phase of an implementation project. So, you're building an app. Before you launch it into your operational environment, it's a great idea to get some feedback and test that application to make sure it's meeting the user's needs, everything's working properly, right? And if you have a feedback app in place during that process, you can have everybody log their feedback there. It's also useful after you go live with an application that you've built. It helps you keep, like I said, that repository of everything that people are saying should be improved or could be improved or needs to change about your applications. Okay, so kind of before it goes live and it goes live. Feedback apps are a great way to close the feedback loop. So what I mean by that is all too often we make changes to our TrackVia applications for the better, right? We improve them, but we fail to communicate that back to our end users effectively, right? It's important to let them know what changes are being made and why. If you have a feedback app and the changes that you make to your applications are tied to that feedback, there are several ways that you can really easily automate that feedback loop. Maybe you set up a notification rule or a reporting schedule or a view on a dashboard that just shows everything that's been changed recently, right? There's a lot of ways to do it, but it gives you an automated way to do it so you don't have to worry about sending a lot of emails and all that kind of stuff, okay? The fourth bullet in this list, I actually think, and people might be able to argue with me on this, but I think this is probably the most important reason to have a feedback app in your account. I think we're all familiar with the phrase or the idea that people don't like change. Unfortunately, there's some truth to that. Anytime we're implementing a new application or a new way of doing something into somebody's daily ways of working, there's going to be folks that maybe are hesitant, right? Give you a little pushback. They don't understand, maybe why they need to change the way that they've been doing something for many years, or they don't see the value in it, right? Having a feedback app in your application is a really, really good way to empower all the end users of your applications to give you feedback on things that they think could be improved, things that might not be working the way that they want it to, right? And they're going to feel like they have much more ownership of the application and feel like they own it. And quite frankly, we're building the apps to help them. So it's a great way to build trust with those folks. Okay, so guaranteed, if you have this feedback app or a feedback app in your application, your end users are going to be happier, more bought in, more engaged with the applications. And then the last one that we've got here is it helps to build your backlog, right? Now you could launch an application and say, you know what, I'm done with it, wash my hands of it. And then in 5 years, chances are you might not love using that application anymore. The idea with TrackVia is you can modify it as your processes change, as new people come to the company, new ideas, new ways of doing things get implemented, and your app should change accordingly. So building the feedback app allows you to build that backlog of how your app needs to change over time, okay? It gives you a really clear path forward. So there's other uses as well. This is just some of the major ones. Like I said, building a feedback app, super helpful for any account. All right, so before we turn it over to Kate, just to get into the app build here, we're gonna talk about user stories real quick. So just switching gears slightly, okay? Anytime we think about building an application in TrackVia, we're thinking about user stories, okay? They help us do a couple of things. First and foremost, they help us define the way that an application should work, okay? A user story is a short, specific description of how an application should behave, and it's always written from one user's perspective, okay? So one user story is one requirement of how the app should work. When you gather a couple of user stories together, and you probably gather dozens if you're scoping out an application that you're going to build, all of the user stories together dictate what the app is going to do, what it's going to look like, what you need to build. So it helps you define the scope of the app, and your user stories help you throughout the build process. They help you understand, as you're building, you're checking off boxes basically. Yes, this user story is accomplished. Yes, this one's accomplished. And you know that you're done with your app build when all the user stories are accomplished. Okay? They help you with testing at the end because you know all the things that the app should be able to do, so you're going to validate it, right? They really help you throughout the whole development cycle. So that's why we think about them a lot when we talk about building apps. So real quick, a good user story and a bad user story, right? Let's talk about two examples here. A user story always has 3 parts to it: who you are, what you want the app to do, and why you want the app to do that. Okay. A good user story, an example of one, is as a manager, you want to be notified when feedback is submitted so you can take immediate action. Okay, this is a good user story because it's discrete, it's succinct, it's very specific in the way that you are outlining what you want the app to do and why. Okay, a poor user story is like this one here. The manager wants to be able to search feedback, edit feedback, email it to colleagues, print it, export it, right? You can see this is not a single requirement about the application. It's multiple kind of jammed into one. So that should really be split up and broken out into multiple user stories. Okay, so all that said, now we know what a feedback app is, why we want one, what user stories are. So let's jump over to Kate, turn it over to her, and we'll look at the application that we're going to be building today, and then we'll build it. So enough of me talking here. Go ahead, Kate.
Thanks, Derek. So, right, piggybacking off of that and working towards this, great, I have to build an app in 30 minutes. Well, what am I going to build? You say feedback app and you tell me the benefits, right? We need to define it, which is what these user stories are. We've come up with 5 different ones from 2 different perspectives listed here. Right. First 2 are from the end user's perspective, specifically calling out what they need to be able to do, which is to be able to log feedback so they can voice their opinions, and the ability to see any feedback that's been logged by themselves or colleagues and understand their status, right? Where are they? That'll kind of speak back to that, that transparency and buy-in. And they want to do that so that they can keep track of what action is being taken. Right, so 2 kind of requirements from the end user's perspective. We've got 3 from the managers, right? As a manager, I want to be notified when the feedback is submitted, right? Take proactive action. As a manager, I want to be able to see any and all feedback appropriately and assign a status to each one so I can take action, telegraph the updates. Third one here, as a manager, I need to be able to categorize each piece of feedback by theme, such that I can run reports later and help me understand, right, what areas may need a little bit more enhancement or training. The last one listed here, number 6, is a bunch of question marks because we want you to help us build this application. So as I start diving in, please, please, please feel free to enter in your user stories in the chat box. We'll monitor it, and to keep me on my toes, Derek will pick the best one out and send it my way as I start building. So please, over the next 2 or 3 minutes, feel free to enter in a user story via the chat and make me really work for it here today. All right.
I promised Kate that I would choose the hardest one. So yeah, whatever anybody chats through, the hardest one to implement, I'm going to pick that one.
It has to be specific though, right? So let's build an app. I'll go ahead and switch the screen I'm sharing and we'll dive in together. Beautiful. Let's get rid of this. Great. All right, so what do I have here? I've got my TrackVia account, and I actually have over here the user stories that we called out. When I build, I like to have the kind of collection that I'm working on the right-hand side, right? And you'll see within here, I've actually kind of highlighted a few that speak to the architecture that I'm gonna wanna build out, right? So let's build this app. I'll hop into TrackVia, create a new application. I'll start it from scratch. I'll call this feedback in 30 minutes. Be brought directly to a table editor, right? So after looking at my user stories over here, I've identified that there are basically 3 primary tables I'm gonna need in this application: feedback, statuses, and themes, all highlighted in yellow. So let's build it out. I'll create a themes table, right? Drop in a single line, we'll call this theme. I'm gonna make it unique. I only want 1 theme listed here, you know, individually. I don't want 2 of the same themes. And I'm gonna axe the auto counter. I don't want that. My record ID is going to be the theme, and I will click save. Real basic. I'm gonna do a save as to build another table, similar to this, but for statuses. We're gonna call this statuses, save as, new table right here. Well, I don't want the single line though to be called theme anymore. So we'll call this status. It is unique. The record ID automatically changes, and I'm good. Great. Let's go now to the last table, which is the feedback table. Okay, this one's going to have a little bit more meat in it. Save as, call this feedback, create the table, right? We're creating that foundation or schema. So let's take a moment and think about this. All right, well, I'm going to connect this to the status and themes table. I'm definitely going to want a paragraph field to allow someone to enter in the actual feedback, right? That makes sense. And then from there, right, TrackVia always gives you some system fields like created by user, last updated, dates like that. I'm going to utilize those. But why don't we throw in, I don't know, an image and a document? Perhaps, we want to give end users the ability to, color in a little bit of their feedback, take screenshots, draw things, whatever they might want. Image and document. I'll need to set my record ID to feedback. And actually, you know what? Let's change that up. I like the idea of putting in an auto counter in here. Auto counters are that kind of designated number. They increment up by 1. And I'm going to call this feedback number. It's a really easy way to use a reference, right? A number within each record. And I'll use my ID and I'll get a little fancy. Let's drop it in our text box, right? Feedback number here. And then I'll actually drop in that auto counter such that what this will look like is feedback number 12, Susie wrote in, right? You get that information. It'll be easier way to reference each piece. I'll click done. I'll click save. That's a great place to start. But TrackVia is a relational database. So if I head to my ERD, I'll see I just have 3 tables. They're not connected at all. Let's connect them, right? We want to leverage the power. So I'll switch to the list, start at a parent table, my themes. A theme has many records in the feedback table. Call it a theme, create the relationship. Statuses, same deal. Status is the parent to the feedback table. You have an individual status. Switch to my ERD, make sure everything looks good. I think we're in business, folks. We've got 2 parent tables, 1 child here. Okay. Table structure's been created. Now where do we go? Well, I'm going to head on over to my views next, right? Tables have been created. Now let's look at views. TrackVia automatically gives you a default view for every single table, but we don't like to use the default view. Reasons why: it's going to show you every single field, no matter what, and you're not going to be able to customize it. So whenever I'm creating an application, I will always at least create 1 view for every table. Click the little plus button. Let's call this all themes. These are all of the fields that are available to me. I'm going to toggle them all off and just bring over the 1 theme. Keep this nice and organized. I just want a list of each individual theme. Save and finish. There's no records because there's no data yet, right? We're setting up the architecture. Let's use that though as a best practice for other tables as well. I'll go to my views. I've got all themes. Now it's time to do all statuses. Click the plus, all statuses. Again, all of these are available to me. I'm going to keep it nice and neat. Just move over the status field. Save and finish. Okay. Now for feedback, I think I'm going to want to make this one a little bit more meaty. So I'll click the plus, all feedback, right? And we've got a lot of options here. In this particular case, I'm thinking more about this is like a reference. People are going to be looking at this table a lot. Let's keep a few of these fields in. I'm going to keep the record ID to allow people to click into the feedback. I'll keep, well, the record ID is actually the feedback number, so we don't need to keep the auto counter. You're out of here. We'll keep the status, the theme, the feedback. Maybe we'll remove the image and document. I feel like sometimes that just takes up space on the view. We might want to add it back later, but let's try and keep this a little bit concise. And then I'll keep the system fields. Gives me my dates, my owners, things of that nature. Save and finish. So now we have our tables. We have our views, all feedback, all statuses, all themes. Well, time to create some forms. Once we create some forms, we're getting to kind of that last big building block. Okay. Now, similar to views, how I like to do all feedback, all statuses, I always create at minimum 2 different forms for every table. One which I'll refer to as a add form when I'm going to be adding data in, and one that I'll refer to as a view or edit form. Now, those who have TrackVia apps, which is everyone on this line, I'd imagine if you go into your applications, you might have more than 2 forms on every table, right? We grow with you, we get to be a little bit more sophisticated, but for best practice baseline, you must at least have a add and edit form for every table. So let's do it. Go to my theme, start at the bottom, click add theme, right? I'll drop my theme field on here. Maybe I'll go to my edit form colors and use my theme colors. They're not really exciting, just different shades of gray, but that's okay. And I'll click save. Really simple, right? We're just gonna add a theme with this form, right? I'll click save as, and here I'm gonna utilize view and edit a theme. It's gonna make a copy of this, which is great. That works for me. Let's think a little bit more critically though. I wanna add a little bit more to this. When I'm looking at a theme, I don't want people to mess with it. Let's call this read only, okay? And then what I like to do is I always like to add a child view to this form. It provides a little bit more context, right? Imagine it, you click into a theme, maybe it's user permissions, and you're able to then see all of the categorized feedback that is connected to that theme. Embedded child views on forms are wildly helpful. Okay. I'll edit my form colors once more, apply that theme to everything, click save. Okay. I now have a add a theme and a view and edit a theme. I've got my 2 forms for this table. Same deal with statuses, let's go. Let's click add status, right? And think about this probably from like the management perspective. We always want the ability to add in records, right, into a table. Use these theme colors, status, save. Does not take a lot. I'm gonna click save as to riff off of this template and build out the view and edit form. View/edit a status, save as. We've got our status here. Again, I'm gonna lock this down. There's probably an argument to say it shouldn't be read only, or we could expand this such that, you know, for some folks it's read only, for some it's not. In this particular case, we're keeping things simple. I only have 30 minutes. Click done. I'm gonna add that view section. Very similar, I'm gonna hop over to my child views section and drop in all of the feedback, right? Again, if you selected a status and you had this embedded child view, it would automatically filter this view by that status, showing you just the feedback that's in that particular status of new or on hold. Edit my form colors, save and close. Okay. So we've got 2 forms for our themes, 2 forms for our statuses, feedback. You know what? We're going for 3. And reason why is we need to start thinking about how people are going to be really interacting with the application. We're absolutely going to add or create an add form for this feedback, right? Maybe end users are going to need this, managers are going to need this. Add feedback, right? This can be the primary way people are entering in data. So let's think about this, right? I'm entering in data. I want to focus my end user's perspective. So I'm going to drop in real big the feedback, right? Direct them to that. Then perhaps, right, I'll put underneath the option to drop in an image if they want to, a document if they want to. Let's extend these. I like how that looks. And then let's drop in a status, right? Make TrackVia work for you. Now, when we drop in a status, this is a relationship field. We're prompted with this little pop-up where we can determine the preferred parent view, change that to all statuses, and I'm going to set a default value. Oh, can't yet. There's no default value. I want it to be new. So let's keep that in mind and we'll circle back, okay? But I know that I want this to be set as new. We've got feedback, we've got image, document. This doesn't look so nice. Let's edit the form colors. And then because this is the primary form folks are going to be using, let's add in a few directions. I'll click on the section pencil and let's type in our description directions. Please enter in your feedback for TrackVia. Include any images or documents that may support your item. We are excited to hear from you. Right? Give someone a little bit of a prompt. This is going to be our add form. Okay. I'll click save. Now let's think about the view or edit form. And I'm actually going to create two, right? One for the end user and one for the manager, because they might need to do different things, see different things. Okay. So save as. I'm going to call this view, edit, feedback, end user, right? Save. Here we are. Well, we can ask first off the directions. They've already entered it in, right? They'll be already viewing this feedback, right? From the end user, I don't want them to be able to change the status. So I'm going to say that this field is read only. Only the manager should be able to change that. You can probably have an argument and a discussion internally to decide, should we allow end users to change their feedback after it's already been submitted? Maybe yes, maybe no. In this particular case, I'm going to keep it open, although do know you could lock this down on this form. I'm also in this particular case going to drop in the feedback number. Right? Maybe let's kind of reorganize this, make it look nice. I'm also going to drop in the theme, right? Because managers need to be able to apply a theme, and we're going to make this read only. And let's organize a little bit. I kind of like to use these widgets with these spacers. Maybe we've got kind of the feedback number 7 with the theme and the status, the feedback itself, any images or documents. And then the last thing I'll do, just to provide a little bit more transparency, put the horizontal line in and drop in my system fields. When was it created? By whom? When was it last updated? By whom? Okay. Click save. That's going to be my view and edit form for my end users. Let's make a copy of it and do a view and edit form for my management or managers. Now, the reason I'm making two, right, is because the manager should be able to change the theme and status. Absolutely. So we'll hop into those fields and mark them as required. Hop into those fields. They should not be read-only. They should be required. Maybe we lock the feedback down, right? And that's something you can do to build trust with your employees, and that once you submit feedback, I can't change it. It's going to be read-only for me. Keep the images and documents for yourself. Looking at our forms, right? The app's starting to get built out, guys. We've got an add and edit theme. We've got a add status and view and edit status. We've got add feedback and view and edit feedback from two different perspectives. Great. Okay, that all sounds good. We got these user stories though, so we definitely need to circle back to that. But before we do, and we actually start looking at those kind of requirements and checking them off one by one, let's add just a little bit of data, okay? Make this come to life. So let's add some themes and some statuses. For this, for a theme, we'll just hop into the add theme. Let's think a theme will be user permissions, right? Maybe that's something we're noticing. Okay. We'll add one more. Excuse me, save and add new. Hop over to that theme. Add a theme, user permissions, and then we can call this UI or user experience. Okay. Those are our themes. Let's add a few statuses. For statuses, we probably have a new status. Save and add new. Then we probably have a under review, maybe. Save and add new. Now you'll notice it's kind of bringing me back to this default form. It's because I haven't permissed or created roles yet. Naturally, we'll suss through that as we get through the requirements. I'm just hopping back and forth to this add status form. So we had new, under review, maybe awaiting employee review. add status. This is maybe deployed to production. 2 more guys, always with statuses. I feel like there's never enough, unfortunately. Let's do a hold or parked. And finally is a needs more information. We can edit them, change them later, right? But we've got a bunch of statuses. So we've plugged in some data, right? We've got some themes, we've got some statuses. This is supposed to be a feedback app. Let's circle back to our user stories, right? Kind of keeping these in the back of our mind. Now that I have the foundation, let's go through each one. As an end user, I need to be able to log feedback so that I can voice my opinions. Okay, well, I need a place for the end user to do this. Let's go to our dashboards and create one. Create a dashboard. Let's call this maybe our feedback hub. Sure. And this is the, employees feedback center. Okay. I on here want them to be able to log feedback. Well, let's drop it right on the front page. I'll go to my forms and click add feedback. Front and center. You don't have to explain that to anyone. They log in, they're directed here. It's pretty straightforward, right? Make the system smart and helpful for you. All right, end users. I need to be able to log feedback so I can voice my opinions. I feel like this is taking care of that requirement. What I'm gonna do and what I do when I build is I'm actually gonna highlight this, kind of keep track over here, right? So let's go ahead and highlight this in light green. I think I'm done with this. Probably need to circle back afterwards and do some extensive testing, but this looks like a check to me. Next, end user. I need to be able to see feedback that I've logged or that my colleagues have logged and their respective statuses so that I can keep track of what action is being taken. Okay, that sounds like they need visibility into the all feedback, right? So easy enough. I'll go to my views and drop all feedback on their dashboard. So they're able to see any and all feedback. Cool. Now, I don't have any records in here and I can't remember if I included the status on this view. Clearly I need it. So I'm gonna write in some build notes. Remember to check if you included the status on the all feedback view. That's something I'll check during testing, but this looks good to me. I'm gonna highlight it in light green. Cool, save the dashboard. This is the feedback hub for an employee's feedback center, right? This is where they're gonna go. They can easily enter in their feedback and they can easily view all feedback they have logged or that their colleagues have logged. Moving on, we're gonna go to the manager's perspective. Okay, let's read through these. As a manager, I need to be notified when new feedback is submitted. I need to be able to see any and all feedback and assign a status. I can take action and then I need to categorize. Okay, well, definitely gonna need a dashboard for these managers. So we'll go to dashboards and in here, let's call this feedback management. And this is the manager's dashboard. Right, or center, whatever we want to call it, I don't care. Great, so from here, we need to be notified when there's new feedback. Okay, well, I've got all feedback in my views and I don't have a view that's gonna allow me to kind of create a notification off of it that's just focused on new feedback. All right, no big deal. That's why we come back to our user stories after the foundation is built and start building out a little bit more, enhancing, right? So I'm just gonna save this dashboard as it is. Nothing's on it right now, that's okay. And I'll go to my views. I need to create a new view that's gonna show me any feedback that's marked with the status of new. That's the logic. So I like to kind of base everything off of other things. I'm lazy. I don't wanna have to rebuild the same view over and over again. So I'm gonna go to my all feedback view, edit it. What does it have in here? Yeah, this looks appropriate. So I'll go to my options menu and click create new. This will create a new view, kind of like a save as against the same structure. Let's call this new feedback. Right? In this particular case, we're going to need to add a filter to this feedback, or to this view, excuse me. Build a new filter, drop in the same name as the view. Both filter and view should have the same name. We're going to call it new feedback. We're going to drop in a status. The status is identical to new. That's all I want coming through this view. Only feedback that has the status of new. Format's fine, save and finish. So now I have a filtered view that's going to show me only feedback that has that status of new, and I need to create a notification off of it. Right, without getting too far down the weeds, we'll go to the options. There's notification rules. Let's call this new feedback notification. And when do I want this to send? I want it to send when something is added to the view. The recipients, I can choose myself. I can choose specific users or a role. Ooh, I want this to go to all managers, but I haven't created a role yet. Okay, no big deal. I'll leave it as me. And in my build notes, I'll say, remember to follow up on the new feedback notification to send to managers. Looks like we got some formatting here. Let's axe that dark green so it's clear. Okay, I'll leave it at me right now. Notification is set up. It's only going to send to me, right? I do want to make it assigned to managers in the future, but it's built in the system. Now going back to my user story, let's throw this on that dashboard. Feedback management, click the pencil. I go to my views, there it is, new feedback, drops right there, right? You're a manager, you want your brand new feedback right in front of your face as you hop into the application here. I can take immediate action. That makes sense to me. I think we're at a light green, guys. Next.
Kate, as you're working through these user stories, I just want to throw in a reminder. We have a couple of user stories, but I want to give everybody the chance, please. We have 2 more to go here, and then we're going to get to the mystery user story. So remember to send through your recommendation of what you want this app to do, what you would like it to do if you were building this in your account, so that we can work that in. And if you have any questions about anything Kate is doing, definitely send those through the chat too, so that we can get to those at the end. Thanks. Sorry to interrupt you, Kate.
No, you're good. Thanks, Derek. Lovely. Looking at the second one here, right? Manager to be able to see any and all feedback and assign a status to each one. Okay, so I can take action and telegraph the updates. Well, that sounds like the all feedback view. Oh, we'll drop that one in here as well. It feels like that speaks to this user story, so we'll mark it as light green. Right, using these visual cues makes you kind of, again, focus on what you have to. It's really easy to get distracted in TrackVia. There's so many things you can do, but staying focused and staying kind of aligned with your initial requirements will lead to success here, right? The last one, as a manager, I need to be able to categorize each piece of feedback by theme. Okay. Well, I think they can do that. It's on that, is it on the form that they use? Let's see, view, edit, feedback managers. Let's look at it. Let's save that dashboard. Ooh, hop on over. There's theme there and it's required. So anytime they look at feedback, they're gonna have to plug in a theme. So I can run reports later. Ooh, this looks a little vague to me. What reports? Who needs those reports? I'm going to put in my build notes to follow up with my stakeholders and circle back to figure out what reports they're talking about. Okay. But in general, I feel like we might have hit all of our requirements here. But now I need to test, because I have some build notes that are extra. I need to test these. These are light green for a reason, right? We need to make them a little darker. So how to test, right? And the last kind of polish or finish for your application here is to fill out your roles. So we've got 2 types of folks here, right? End users and managers. I'll go to my role builder. I'll click add. I'll type in an end user. This is going to be a limited user. and I'm going to assign a dashboard to them, the feedback hub. Automatically, you'll see some elements of your dashboard listed here. We need to make sure to grant them access, right? Those will be listed right below in the table where we allow them to add feedback. Do I want to let them do it offline? Sure, I don't care. I'll check that off. And you'll see the view that's listed here too. What form should they be directed to when selecting something in this view? Well, definitely not the default form. I want them to be directed to the end user form. Do I want to allow them, just move this over a little bit, to read, write, and delete, read, write, or just read? I want them to read and write, not delete. Okay. I'll click Save. End user, done. Now let's create one for the manager. Click Add, call this the management role. This is also a limited user in this particular case. I'm going to click Add and Remove on the dashboards. I'm going to assign them the feedback management dashboard. Grant access, grant access. You could also assign them the feedback hub too. Managers can enter in feedback. In this case, just one. Below, right, these are the tables. I'm gonna allow them to add feedback. These are the two different views that were listed on the dashboard, all feedback and new feedback. What form should they be directed to when selecting a record in these views? The view and edit managers. Okay. I'm also going to allow them to add statuses and view all statuses for that kind of preferred parent view. And same thing with themes. Okay. Perfect. From here, I'm going to save, and it's time to test. Hop into end user first. I'm just going to throw myself in that role. Great. Head to my dashboard, the feedback hub. This is what it looks like. All right. Well, going back to my user stories, can I log feedback? Let's try. Can I log feedback? Ooh, looks like we've got some statuses. I said that I wanted to allow it to always be new though. So we need to come back to that. That's fine. Save and add new. And you'll see immediately, right? Instantaneous feedback for your end users. That is logged. Feedback 1, the status is new. Theme, can I log the feedback? I want to change this slightly, right? We're going to go back into the form, edit the form, change this status. The default should be new. And then let's leave it there. That's fine. Save it. Is that better? Looks better to me, but let's go to our hub. It's new for them, so they don't have to worry about it. Can I log more feedback? Save and add new. It's in there. I've tested twice. I've made a slight change. I'm marking this to dark green. Right. It's now ready for UAT officially. I need to be able to see any feedback that's been logged. I can do that down here. I also have to verify that another colleague can log feedback and I can see it, but there's no filter on here. I'm pretty confident, right? And I need to remember to check if I included the status on the all feedback. I did. It's right there. I always have kind of this build notes here to refer back to. I feel good with this one. Let's move it to ready for UAT in our minds. Okay. The manager perspective. Okay, well, I'm in the end user. Let's take me out. Save it. Let's throw me in that manager's perspective to see what they are able to see. Hop back to my dashboard, feedback management. I've got a lot of feedback here. That makes sense. They're both in new. I can see everything here, just the new ones here. I need to be notified, and I've got build notes. Remember to change the notification. Hop into that view, go to my notifications, go to recipients, no longer me, all users in a role, management. Now I've taken care of that piece, and I am confident that this is now set in place. Ooh, a little darker there. To be able to see any and all feedback and assign a status, let's head back to our dashboard. Can I change the statuses? Maybe this one's not new, it's under review. Bingo, it worked. That looks good to me. Mark it green. Finally, to categorize by theme. I've got my themes and the system lets me put it on. Right? I need to follow up with stakeholders regarding this kind of reports, but I feel pretty good to move this forward. I've got a working application. Folks can enter in feedback, and as a manager, you can be notified and take action on it. Okay. Derek, did we get any takers? You want to move on and tough luck?
Yes, okay, we've got a couple.
Okay.
I think I've selected a winner. We'll go with Amanda. So thanks, Amanda, by the way. Thanks for joining. Nice to see you. Glad to have you on the call today. Amanda would like the ability to see more than just the status, maybe a little bit more insight into the progress that's being made for any feedback item. So somebody's logged in, you know, what is actually happening behind the scenes. There's probably a lot of different ways to do that, but maybe we can pick kind of a simple way to achieve that here.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe what we could do then is provide a little bit of an opportunity for a manager to write in some progress notes, right? And keep that locked for the end user, but they can kind of see it if they check back in. Let's go in that scenario. Okay, so I need to create like I'm going to call this progress notes. All right, well, it doesn't exist right now, so start at the beginning. Go to your tables. Where is this going to live? We're going to keep it nice and simple. Probably an argument to make it a child table, but you know, we're getting close to time here, so I'm going to go right to feedback and drop in a paragraph field and call this progress notes. Okay. We now have expanded our schema to allow for it. Do we want to enter this in on any views? Maybe on the all feedback. I'm going to drop in progress notes, add it, drop it, and let's move it maybe right underneath the notes. Save and finish. And then on my forms, that's where I'm really thinking about it. And I'm going to add progress notes to the managers and end users forms, right? Not when you add it. So on the manager's perspective, we've got this lovely feedback. Let's create a new field section. Let's drop in the progress notes and let's call this keep your employees in the loop. Okay. Maybe we change the color to kind of bring your attention to it. And in here, right, we've got some progress notes. And maybe we have an example, right? Example. When we have the date and we have these things happened and we're currently working on XYZ and awaiting Kate to email us back, right? Save and close, right? That's my example, right? Or that's a default value. Why don't we change that? My apologies. Hop back in. I want that to not be our default value, but our placeholder. So it'll give you an example of how to use this. From the manager's perspective, we want this to be open, right? You should be able to type in here and plug in whatever you want. But, right, to increase that transparency, provide a little bit more metadata for our end users. We'll click this. We'll go into the end user view, add the same section, right, field section, drop in progress notes, right, and maybe in this is updates on your ticket. Right. And the colors here, again, bring some attention. Maybe you color code these based off of your company's logo or themes. But the big thing here is we're going to lock this down, right? This is read only for end users. So they can come in and check and see if there are any changes in that regard. Okay. And naturally, right, if I go to my dashboard, I go to my feedback hub. I think I'm in the manager's role right now. So let's actually change that, feedback management. If I hop into one of these, right, feedback 2, I'm in that manager's role. I can see here and I can write my own thing. Right, what's today? 7/28, XYZ. Okay. Working on the fly. Didn't know that one was coming. Hopefully, Amanda, that speaks to kind of what you're after there. But a really easy way, right, to provide a little bit more metadata. Again, utilizing those two forms, one for the managers to allow them to plug in what they want, and then one for the end users so that they can see it all, but they can't and interact with that specific field. Okay, lovely. So with that in mind, I'm going to just hop back over to our presentation, and then Derek, I'll let you kind of run and close us out.
Awesome, thanks. Nice. So that's, beginning to end full app build. Now, I know we went a little bit over, so anybody that needs to drop off, feel free, go ahead, but we'll stay on for a couple more minutes just to wrap things up here. So let's see, I think we're just gonna hop into key takeaways here. Hopefully what you saw was that feedback apps are pretty quick and easy to build, right? Kate just built one, but Kate's an expert, but still, Kate just built one in 45 minutes, 40 minutes or so. But you can make them as simple or as robust as you'd like, right? What we gave you here today is an example of how to build one quickly and launch it quickly just to get something out the door. Everybody can use a feedback app, right? There are so many benefits of using one. We highly recommend everybody implement one of these in their account. And then the last key takeaway is that anytime we're talking about building an app, this isn't necessarily related to a feedback app, but it's related to every app. Always start with user stories and use those as kind of your North Star as you're going through the build. Okay. So that said, I think we're up for questions. So if anybody has any questions, chat them through now. I think I saw one question here. And I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. Sneh. Is there any way to assign a feedback to a manager or a specific role? So maybe you could just speak briefly to that, Kate. You don't have to jump back and show her anything.
Yeah, most certainly. So question is, can we assign it to someone individually or a role? So most certainly. Right? So I think specifically around an individual first, right? Imagine you have an employees table on your application, and those employees are a manager's table, and you have a application user field, right, on there called, right, manager. You could put that field on your form and thus call it assignee or point person. And when a feedback is submitted, right, a manager gets notified. And on that view and edit form, there's now a new field called, send to or point person. And you're looking and you're picking an application user from that kind of managers or employees table. Okay. So most certainly we see that all the time. It's really helpful that way. If you're looking at caseloads or workloads, right, and you're splitting up this work together, and then you can naturally do some dashboard filtering to say, hey, show me as a manager all of the feedback that is personally assigned to me, and that's my to-do list today.
Great.
You got it.
Okay. I don't see any other questions coming through, so let's go to the next slide here, just kind of wrap things up. If you do have other questions, you know how to get in touch with us, right? Many different ways. So if you want to, right, Kate went through this really quickly. This wasn't a full training on how to build an application, but kind of the general overview. If you do want to know more, of course, about start to end building apps, head over to the TrackVia University website, enroll in those courses. They can give you a lot of information about app building. Christina Gutierrez, one of our implementation engineers, wrote a great blog post earlier this month about user acceptance testing and how to collect that feedback, how those tie into user stories, importance of UAT. It's a great article to check out related to this topic. Of course, if you ever have any questions about anything you saw today, want help building a feedback application, you can always reach out to our support team. And if you want, kind of more hands-on, more help than, kind of a support ticket, Kate's team is always available to help in any way that you need through professional services. Our next webinar is at the beginning of September, so not the last week in August, beginning of September, and we're doing a new feature webinar. So we're going to review a lot of the features that we've released over the last 6 months. It's going to be a great webinar, so make sure you mark that on your calendars. And then, of course, you'll get a recording of this shortly. And if you have just 2 minutes to fill out the survey at the end of this webinar, we would really greatly appreciate it. Thanks again, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you next month.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.